Something I deeply resonate with as a healer is how healers are activated by ancestral coding. And some of you know what I'm talking about. You felt it, you lived it, you got the visions, and you really know what that is. And some of you are like, what the heck are you talking about? And sometimes you're kind of in the middle where you're like, oh, is that what it's called? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the call to be in the healing arts in whatever form or format that looks like for you. Perhaps you're a nurse or you're a doula, you're a sound healer, a breathwork facilitator, you're a musician, you're a DJ, you're somebody who's in the healing arts that's bringing health, wellness, well-being, consciousness into your community. Now, for a lot of healers, people don't necessarily just like wake up one day and decide to just like, oh, I think, from like the list of things that I can go and do in college, I can be a healer. That's like a low on the list, and whatever your relationship is with the word healer, maybe it's cringy, maybe you're like, oh, or you've kind of, accepted it at this point, whatever your relationship is, most people, especially in Western culture, don't necessarily have like the healing path option to go to from a young age. Now, ancestral coding is basically this deep inner knowing that you're meant to be in the healing arts. And you're like, wow, that is such a whack decision. That is such a random decision. That is such a random calling, or it's not really aligned with anything that I've done or experienced or studied or been taught or been led to, but I'm feeling this called into the healing arts. And I don't know what it is, but there's something inside your body that's like, go, it's like, go, and maybe you see it in your dreams, you hear it in your voice, you see the synchronicities, you see the signs in so many different ways. Many people get different kinds of signs and, whacks in the head. But, however it is that you're receiving your calling, there's kind of this deep inner calling that is pulling you towards the healing arts. And as I mentioned before, healing arts is such a variety of activities. It's the healers, the massage therapists, the social workers, the people who, take care of your mental health, your physical health, your nurses, right? There's so many different variations of who is a healer. So you can kind of identify that for yourself, but also this inner memory that's awakening is this spiritual lineage that might have existed within you for a really long time. And sometimes people call it epigenetics, meaning that there's this core embedded memory within your genetics that is from your ancestors. So your ancestors who were the people in the jungles, who were, hunting, who were tending to the earth, who were keeping the water, who were sending prayers and doing rituals and doing all of this beautiful elemental and energetic work. They're the peoples who carry that coding. Now, through colonialism, through violence and war and death and millennia, lots of different, variations of things that happened that separated us from that inner knowing or from that connection to the nature, connection to the earth. But epigenetics, or this ancestral coding, essentially says there's still some sprinkling of that inner knowing somewhere in there. And a lot of people describe their spiritual awakening, and however it is that you got there, maybe you went to a rave and you did a bunch of drugs, or you fell and you hit your head and all of a sudden, or maybe you hit rock bottom, or whatever it is that happened in your life that got you to this moment of like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be doing something different. I'm not supposed to be on the rat race and chasing the money all the time. Like, get your money, but also don't there's this kind of this like autopilot thing that you wake up from, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second, I want to do something different. I want to do something that feels more meaningful, that perhaps is more meaningful, that perhaps has a different meaning because it's coming from a different part of my body, right? It's not coming from this like logical part of my brain that says, get a job because it's the more logical thing to do, or do this because it's going to have the best financial repercussions. Yes, in a capitalistic society, like we still do have to think about many of those things, and there's this part of your body that's like louder, and maybe in your body, it's your heart space that there's like, my mind says one thing, but my heart says a different thing. Perhaps that's you there. Or perhaps it's your stomach that says a different thing, where it's like, my mind says one thing, but my stomach, my gut, my intuition is saying something completely different. And I can't really identify it, but there's a part of me. Which part, right? The part is the heart, the body. Which part? Is the part is the stomach, is the gut, the intuition, this inner knowing, this womb space that holds a lot of critical information. So when and if you clicked on a video like this and you're listening to an episode like this, perhaps you're somebody who's feeling that call. You're like, it's somewhere in there, but maybe you don't have any practical evidence of that in your lineage. Maybe you don't see that with your parents, that they were healers, that they have very practical jobs, they're accountants, or they do, they're engineers, and they're in certain fields that don't necessarily represent this like mystical, magical, energetic, elemental connection to earth. Perhaps that's not what the form of what they're doing is, but there's still some calling. Perhaps your grandparents didn't even have that connection, or your great parents and maybe you don't even have a connection to the rest of your lineage in that way for whatever reason, but your body's going to let you know. Your body's going to say, wait a second, I have this desire to go study plants, or I want to go study the womb, or I want to study cycles, and I want to study food or nutrition or menstruation or the moon, or like all of the things that, they were you in the back in the day because it was too cuckoo caca woo woo wah wah, and you're not allowed to do that, And so here in this day and age, and I'm making this video in 2025, in this day and age, perhaps there's this inner calling where you're feeling like that is the way that our society and our collective consciousness is going now. It's not to say that we always have to be based in this like rigid masculine energy of like, this is how it is and that's how it should be, or there's some more room to play. There's more room to flow. There's more room to study and understand things that are unseen with the human eye, but felt with the human body and experienced with the human soul. Now, in this experience, if you are somebody who's feeling this call to, as I mentioned, this ancestral coding that's awakened, something that I will say to you that I do believe that it awakens at different times for different people. And again, the way that it awakens, you can go drink your cups of ayahuasca and still not have your breakthrough, and then one day you're sitting at the stoplight and you just break down in tears, and this big awareness and memory starts to flood and flush through your bones and body. It doesn't matter how you got there. It just means that there's this calling within you that's asking you to pay attention. Now, I'll speak a little bit about myself in the sense that I'm a 4th generation sound healer, and there's lots of people in my family who are just drawn and called to that, and they have this beautiful way that they express their art and creativity through their music, through their voice, through their creation. They're able to translate music and songs into feelings, and it's just such a beautiful alchemy to witness. I've never essentially been called to that, but I'm called to it in a different form. I'm called to it in sound baths. I'm called to it in producing music. I'm called to it in leading ritual, ceremonial breathwork sessions to allow people to have access to the sounds of their physical body, the momentum of their emotions. I'm called to it in a different way. But before this, I was studying computer science. I had an award-winning digital agency. I was doing a lot of running my agency, doing this and that. I was in research science, looking at what keeps girls interested in math and sciences, looking at their perfectionism, looking at their behaviors and how they feel about themselves when they pursue things that they want to but feel like they can't. There's so many different ways that I was already in the work that I'm in right now, almost 15 years in, 10 plus years, almost 15 years in, is that there's a version of me that already knew that I was meant to do something in a different way. Now, it's not that I don't value the things that I was doing before, or is there something inherently wrong with it, but as your coding starts to activate, your way and your form of how you apply that coding will also shift and change. Now, here's is it the hard part? It's the exciting part where you get to decide to say yes to that. You say, oh my gosh, I am really feeling the pull from my ancestors. And these are ancestors I never met. Maybe I'm like hallucinating. Maybe I'm delusional. I am making this up in my head. Or is this like little coded systems that are embedded within your genetics that are awakening, the spiritual lineage that is awakening. So you don't need a fancy title to awaken that. You don't need to know the lineage of people. I said I'm 4th generation sound healer, 13th generation mystic. Like there's all of these different things that you don't need titles of in order to awaken. So here's where you have to be a brave person about it. You say, let me see where in my body I'm getting that call from. Is this because I'm just like desperate to change my life? Sometimes desperation leads to great things. Yeah, so maybe follow that path of conversation, follow that path of inquiry. Sometimes it's to say, when I don't know what part of me is calling, ask your physical body, hey, which part? And your body's going to go boop, 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 boop. It's going to tingle. It's going to make some sounds. It might constrict or might contract. It's going to say, I'm speaking to you, and I'm speaking to you loudly. And sometimes, and not to, infer causality, sometimes suppressing our creativity, sometimes suppressing our intuition is also collecting that energy into that part of our body that often leads to disease, leads to chronic inflammation, leads to that part of it being suppressed. So you might start to notice maybe there's something that's going on in your physical body, at that part of your body that you said you didn't know was talking to you, right? Like, that part of me says I want to. So every time you think of that idea or think of that, move that you want to make, that part clenches. You're like, oh, that just must be my gas, or it must just be bubble guts, or it must just be my time of the month, and you're kind of dismissing it from it actually being something that is trying to talk to you. So here's the practice for you. All right, if you're ready, go ahead and rub your hands together and get some heat energy flowing through your body as you take a nice deep breath, inhaling in through your nose. Inhale. And go ahead and exhale, make some sounds. Close down your eyes if you feel called to. And as you finish rubbing your hands, just gently keeping your hands together as the heat energy, the electrons, all the little subtle movements between your palms are going to go back and forth. And just simply ask, which part of my body is trying to talk to me? And wherever it is that you feel that call, you place your hands to that part of your body. And as you continue to breathe in and out, however it feels right to you, ask this part of your body, what are you trying to tell me? I'm listening. As you hear this part of your body perhaps attempting to speak, or perhaps you hear it very clearly what it's saying, go ahead and nod and let it know, I heard you. Activating these ancestral coding often feels like nothing, and sometimes it feels like something. So as you inhale in through the nose, exhale out your mouth. 2 more times, inhaling in, exhale out, inhale in, and exhale out. Gently blink your eyes open. Now the prompt that I'll leave you here with is an inquiry to ask yourself, what is desiring to awaken within me? What is desiring to awaken within me? All right, friends, just remember, the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.